Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And we're at a momentous time of the year. You know, we've seen the new moon 15 days ago, now coming on the 15th day of the month. And many of us understand that 15th day of the month is a Sabbath. Most everybody listening to me will understand that. Some of us understand that the 15th day of the month is Sabbath every month, but that's not the portent of this message, because I know there's a lot of people listening that, some have never observed feast days. Some have been getting away from the pagan holidays, Christmas, Easter. We did our first Passover in 1993, and a Jewish man taught the Seder, did the service, and taught us Christians, about Ishtar and Astarte and all the false gods that have to do with the sun worship. And it was quite the eye-opener. It was a fabulous presentation, good teaching. So that, needless to say, was a breaking point. It set us on we'd already gotten away from Easter. We just knew there was something wrong. We stopped doing Easter and stopped doing Easter eggs. My mom threatened to, turn us into social services because we didn't let our kids do an Easter egg hunt. Like, you're abusing your children. You don't want them to believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. You should be arrested and have your kids taken away, But anyway, yeah, back in the old days. So we were already getting away from that. So anyway, all right. So moving right along, we had the new moon. Now I didn't see it because it was like totally overcast, and well, whatever. Sometimes that happens, but we are for sure this weekend observing Passover instead of Easter. So, anyway, just a lot of heavy things happening. We see through a glass darkly, and Paul says that, and we don't know how things are going to play out. And there's so many people on so many different pages, as it were. I see a gathering happening, and my brother that was here, Stone Kingdom of Yahweh YouTube channel, we talked about it, how Father is the one giving out the invitations. I'm a messenger. I'm telling people, hey, come here. And I had an discussion with somebody yesterday about, well, the kingdom. Where's the kingdom? We need to go to the kingdom. We need to start walking. And it's not here. This person said, it's over there in the Mediterranean, on the shores of the Mediterranean. And I was like, well, that's bad theology. Sorry. I said people that believe that theology are generally up in the Pacific Northwest. James Wesley Rawls. He's a Zionist, basically. That's why he's up there. He has bad theology. Bad theology will always lead to bad practice. So I said, if you want to walk, you better start walking. It's a long ways, and there's a big ocean in between. Anyway, that's not the point of what I get across, but I wanted to just, spend some time. I want to do an encouraging message. And so that's where I want to get into. But we're at a point in time when, everybody listening to me right now, I knows that things are not right in this country. We're not all going to fulfill the American dream. The American dream is pretty much toast right now. We all believe that probably things just might continue to get a wee bit worse, to use the euphemism of the millennia. Things go south, whatever. Balloon goes up. It's time to get out of Dodge. G-O-O-D, get out of Dodge. You need your good bag. You need your inch bag. I'm never coming home, you know. You need your bug out bag, your bug out bicycle, your bug out vehicle, and your bug out location. And most of you don't have a bug out location. So, my point is, this is it. You can take in everybody from the country that makes it here. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going to address it, you know. People that say that, stay where you're at. Because, you know, I've been on these prepper groups and whatever, alt market, prepared society. Oh, my gosh. I had more in common with a Satanist than with the Christian guy on the group. I mean, he said he was from the Temple of Set. He was an outright pagan, you know. And, but, you know, we had some good time. You know, I mean, we agreed on some things. He was intelligent, let's put it that way. He respected me, and he you know, complimented me. And he was the one that set me off on an awesome article. I you know, pat me on the back, but I thought it was an awesome article. You know, where it said you had your avatar and your name and where you're from, and he said outside of space and time, and oh, that just set me off. I said, that's where I'm looking at this whole thing from, you know. And I went on to say, you weren't supposed to talk about religion, but I went to talk about, you know, like the guy in Men in Black, whatever his name was. He saw all timelines, all of them, all the time. You know, anyway, kind of like he was like a God figure. So I said, you know, we can have that perspective if we, you know, my father has that perspective, and if you get to know my dad, you know, I can introduce you to him. You know, you can have that same perspective yourself outside of space and time. So it was pretty cool. All right, anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read an article. Sorry, I wish I could have it up on the screen, but I have not figured out what the heck's wrong with everything yet. So I'm just hoping. I've been reading Lights Out, and everybody seems to like it. So I'm going to read an article that I wrote back when I still had, well, back when I still had more brain cells than I have now. So I read stuff I wrote years ago, and I'm like, wow, man, I'm glad I wrote that back then, because I sure couldn't put those words together now. So anyway, Passover, and we'll see what happens this year, you know, coming up on Tabernacles. Like I say, Passover's been fulfilled in time. You know, the prefiguring of Passover has been fulfilled, and a lot of us understand that. You know, death of Christ, the death of death in the death of Christ. There's a book. Dear reader, I sweat blood writing this book, and you're going to sweat blood if you read it. Those Puritans were something. Anyway, that was John Owen. And then Pentecost was fulfilled. You know, Pentecost was the giving of the law, the giving of the Ten Commandments. That was Pentecost. When the day of Pentecost was fully come, the Holy Spirit came and wrote the law in our hearts. So we're supposed to have the law written in our hearts. We don't have to worry about turning a light switch on, because it might be like kindling a fire, and we don't have to do this or be damned, and we don't have to do that or be damned. Do this and live, the law commands, but gives me neither feet nor hands. A better way his grace doth bring. It bids me fly and gives me wings. So, fall feast may be it. This may be the year. They have not been fulfilled. You have the day of the trumpets, and then you have the Day of Atonement 10 days later. Just had a flashlight die. I don't know where the charger is. And then you have the of course, the, you know, Feast of Tabernacles. And I believe that we're transitioning into that time, from the Pentecostal age into the Tabernacles age, millennial age, whatever you want to call it. So, so right now, I just wanted to, like I said, do what I feel would be an encouraging message. We're kind of at, like I say, a crucial time in history and mankind's history. I believe that we're going to be seeing, this is my take on things, you know, the most magnificent magnanimous, awesome, amazing work of move of God, of a deity in all of mankind's history. So that's what I see. I believe when all is said and done, when the smoke clears and the dust settles and it's all over, we're going to see the mustard seed. A little tiny seed going to fill the whole earth. So how does that happen? Well, it's got to fall in the ground and be buried and die. So it's got to be tested. The gold has got to be tested, purified, refined through heat, and so the commands, I've said this before, but the Genesis commands, the dominion mandate, be fruitful, multiply, take dominion, replenish the earth, take dominion and subdue it, has never happened. I believe it. Why did Yahweh command that with no ability to perform it? Of course we had the ability to perform it. Okay. If we have the ability to perform it, if he told us to do it and we have the ability to perform it, then would it not seem that he would prefer to have it actually happen? Maybe that's his plan. So, and people like Ken Updegrove, Mr. Gatekeeper, Mr. Come to Community, come to the Ozarks, but actually don't do anything when you get here, there is not going to be any move of God, even though that's the name of his book, The Last Great Move of God. But he doesn't believe that God's going to do anything. Anyway, God tells you to go build a community, and 35 years later you haven't done it, So I got some issues with that scenario. So if you believe that God is just going to someday show up on the scene and poofy presto, wave a magic wand, and suddenly we're all going to be floating on wispy cotton candy clouds, playing on harps, and you're not going to ever do anything except screw up your entire life and be greedy and be stupid and be selfish, and then be blessed and rewarded with living in the kingdom forever. I don't think it's going to work. I would say, let me know how that works out for you, but I don't think I'll know, because we'll be in two different places probably. Anyway, all right, enough pre-rambling. I'm sorry, but okay, I'm going to blow the shofar and then start talking. Suffer. I should learn how to do that properly, but oh well. All right. Like I said, I wish I could have it up on screen, but such is not going to happen at the moment. I could put this down, but whatever. All right. And I'm just going to read this as is. We'll see how it plays out. Of Marshwiggles and kings, of shadowlands and the healing of things. There is so much negative news. All the news that's not fit to stomach. I am guilty of passing on far too much bad news, as much as the next guy. I do it just because it is news. If there's a lion coming down the path, and if I know about it ahead of time, I can get out of the path. Simple, right? Because of my outlook, my beliefs, the way I look at things, what to me is news may look like good news. To someone else, it may be bad. At a fellowship one month, a friend said, "Things sure are happening fast." And I replied, "Yes, they sure are." I sensed that he was concerned, but I was seeing so many good new things recently, I was excited. Then he said, "I wish they would slow down." And I shot right back, "I wish they would speed up." This was years ago. So it depends on your perspective. Virtually all of us seem to have a pretty exact idea of how things are going to play out in the near, far future. Most of those ideas were chiseled into our hard little heads by theologians or gurus who, truth to tell, had they been more honest or more intelligent or wiser and less greedy, would have never written a book or ever given a single lecture. James 3:1 says, "My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation." Over the years, our minds have become steel traps, permanently closed and all rusted shut. Then we wonder why bad news depresses us. What we really need is some positive news, some good news, some encouragement, or at least a way of seeing the news with some wise insight that will lift us up. Almost scorched by the near misses of bolts of lightning and nearly shattered by the deafening explosion of blasts of thunder, shaken and sickened, high above the furious blackened storm clouds, and find ourselves in clear sunlight once again, with sky so achingly blue it seems almost like crystal, with vision so clear it would seem we can see for thousands of miles. There is nothing like a perceptive and well-done work of fiction to allow us to peer behind the curtains of life and find out that what we were so terrified to see, so petrified to hear, is nothing more than a wizened, little old man, like a naughty schoolboy, busily pulling levers and pushing buttons and creating the voices and roars and the clashing and clanging which has frightened us so. And at sometimes there's that little dog that pulls the curtain back and lets us see the truth of the matter. Okay, Wizard of Oz illusion there. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. I am the great Oz. J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were masters at this, and their books and many others can be a great encouragement. Good will triumph. Evil will fall. Life follows death. Indeed, there is no life without death. How can we ever grow a garden or raise some wheat or corn without this truth being explained to us and instilling hope in us? John 12:24. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. And I'm here right now because of that verse. Freely have received, freely give. I can do that. Except the corn of wheat fall on the ground and die, it remains alone. I can do that too. I'll let that $600 go. And here I am. Gandalf. This is Gandalf and Pippin. I didn't think the end would be like this, Pippin says to Gandalf, and Gandalf says, End? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path, one that we all must take. The gray curtain of this world rolls back, and all turns to silver glass, and then you see it. See what? Gandalf, see what? Green pastures. What? Red sun, glorious sunlight, and a glorious sunrise, something like that. I didn't write it down here, so I forget it. But look at the thing. It is hard, perhaps impossible to see from our perspective, but true and powerful nonetheless. The forces we see, mighty as they seem, evil as they are, inhuman as they have become, have no chance against the infinitely mightier forces and higher power they are arrayed against. And that is where blind faith comes in. This reminds me of C.S. Lewis's Puddleglum, the Marshwiggle in the silver chair. Few books ever written have depicted such a weak and tiny, completely unequipped and leaderless force. 2 children and a Marshwiggle against such overwhelming powers. We won't go there. In order to accomplish such an impossible task. A journey up north, just as winter's beginning, looking for a prince that probably isn't there, by way of a ruined city that no one has ever seen? Sounds like fun, you know. An impossible task, an unreachable goal. Like the 2 children in the silver chair, we will succeed if we can remember the rules we were given and follow and obey them. We have to remember the rules, and we have to be willing to obey them, okay? So, Puddleglum was this depressing character. The other Marshwiggles tell me I'm far too lighthearted and flippant. Now, a job like this, a journey up north just as winter's beginning, looking for a prince that probably isn't there by way of a ruined city no one has ever seen, will be just the thing. Not much chance of being burnt, that's the bright side of it, observed Puddleglum, pointing to their right. There, hardly 100 yards away, lapping against the walls of the houses, was the water. He's just a character. All right, back to where I was there. Okay. So we need to remember the rules, Torah, remember, the scriptures, and be willing to obey them, follow them. And that is rare. Perhaps even beyond the difficulty of their task, Tolkien depicts the most foolish and impossible war plan of all times. Switching to Tolkien now, Lord of the Rings. 2 hobbits are supposed to just walk into Mordor, climb Mount Doom, and this is Boromir. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Its black gates are guarded by more than just orcs. There is evil there that does not sleep. The great eye is ever watchful. It is a barren wasteland, riddled with fire, ash, and dust. The very air you breathe is a poisonous fume. Not with 10,000 men could you do this. It is folly. At the Council of Elrond, the proposal to take the ring to Mordor and destroy it is questioned as a path of either despair or folly. Despair or folly, said Gandalf. It is not despair, for despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. None of us do. We do not. It is wisdom to recognize necessity when all other courses of action have been weighed. Though as folly it may appear to those who cling to false hope. Well, let folly be our cloak. Okay? A veil before the eyes of the enemy. For he is very wise and weighs all things to a nicety in the scales of his malice. But the only measure that he knows is desire. Desire for power. And so he judges all hearts. Into his heart the thought will not enter that any will refuse it, that having the ring we may actually seek to destroy it. If we seek this, we shall put him out of reckoning. At least for a while, said Elrond. The road must be trod, but it will be very hard, and neither strength nor wisdom will carry us far upon it. This quest may be attempted by the weak with as much hope as the strong. Yet such is oft the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere. And that is what is happening right now. If that should sound perhaps hauntingly familiar, then compare it to a passage from the Bible which describes the course exactly which the Council of Elrond chose, and it describes it almost to a T. 1 Corinthians 1:25, because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. For you see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And base things of the world, and things which are despised, hath God chosen, yea, and things which are not, the nothings of the world, to bring to nothing, to bring to naught the things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. Now, back to Puddleglum. It is hard, perhaps impossible to see from our perspective, but true and powerful nonetheless. The forces we see, mighty as they seem, evil as they are,